A staggering amount has been spent on COVID relief, helping companies, farmers, hospitals, schools, and individuals make it through the pandemic. Not to mention billions more spent on vaccines and testing, a total of around $6 trillion. It's been a lifeline for many. But unfortunately, with so much money being doled out so quickly, it's also been seen as easy cash for fraudsters. Last week, 7 members of a fraud ring in LA were sentenced. They collected over $20 million in loans using stolen and invented identities. They bought luxury homes, gold watches, and a Harley-Davidson. The ringleader got a 17-year sentence. And recently, a California man pleaded guilty to $9 million worth of fraudulent loans. He invested some in stocks, and the rest he gambled away in Vegas. And in Texas, a wedding planner schemed to get $3.3 million from the Paycheck Protection Program to pay 100 fabricated employees. He did pay off his home and bought 2 Teslas and Mercedes, among other things. He's now serving 31 months behind bars. And possibly the most brazen case of all, a Texas man collected nearly $25 million for non-existent businesses. He bought 8 homes and a fleet of luxury cars. He is now serving 11 years in jail. But unfortunately, most criminals aren't caught. The Department of Labor's Inspector General said in June it had identified nearly $8 billion in potential fraudulent unemployment insurance claims over a 7-month period. And a key ingredient of many of these crimes is identity theft. In August, the Federal Trade Commission said it received over 69,000 complaints of identity theft. But don't think the government enforcement agencies are rooting out all of those scams. Sometimes it just takes an alert citizen to notice that something's amiss, as is the case with our next guest. Epoch Times reporter Patricia Tolson broke the story of California Community College overrun with fake student bots. We're joined today by the whistleblower Kim Rich, a professor of criminal justice and a distance education specialist at Pierce College from Los Angeles Community College District. Kim, welcome.
Thank you.
So given your particular skill set, it seems that some fraudsters messed with the wrong teacher. Can you tell us what initially caught your attention and what you found from there?
I teach one specific class every summer session B, which is basically later in the summer session. And I noticed some similarities in some of the work that some of the students were submitting in my class. And I started to look at it a little bit more detail and realized that it appeared the same person who was not a student was completing all of the work for these other students in the class. And so it was different than what I had seen before. And so I kind of just started looking a little bit deeper into the work that they had submitted, and things just started, I guess you could say, snowballing. And I was actually able to determine that many of the students, about a third of the class, were actually fake students. They were not real people sitting, online doing the work.
Wow. So how did you know it wasn't a student submitting the work?
I can't go into every single thing that I found because I don't exactly want them to know how I figured it out. However, I did, look at many, many different aspects. It wasn't just one thing that led me to believe they were actually fake students. I knew there was an issue. It was different than it had been before. And I just started looking into, some of their majors. They had a lot of majors that were in common, which is really unusual in this instance. A lot of their identification numbers, their student identification numbers, were very close sequentially. So I just started digging and realized many of these students had taken similar or the same exact class in the prior summer session. So same year, but the first 5-week session. And that led me to believe that, hey, maybe I should check fall and see if they're enrolled. And the majority of these students were enrolled in very similar fall classes, some identical, many taking more than you would see. So some of them were taking 18 units. And then it just snowballed from there. I started looking at other classes, and each class that I went to, there were more and more of them. And then that led to another class, which led to more students in another class.
Wow. So 1/3 of your own students, that's a lot. Were you seeing similar ratios in the other classes?
I was seeing a variety of ratios. So I was seeing everything from just like maybe a handful, 3 or 4 out of approximately 40 students, all the way up to almost 95% of students in one class were actually fake students.
Incredible. And so what do you think this scam is? What do you think they're doing this for?
There's really only one reason, and it all leads to money. These are not students who are trying to get an education. These are students who are in it to game the system. I personally believe it's definitely related to all of the COVID relief fund that is out there and available. And the second they get that money, they're gone. There's, some irregularities in some of them where I think there could be at least 2 different scams going on, led by 2 different groups. I don't know. I haven't been able to dig that deep into it. And I'm really not a behind the scenes computer person. So that's something for somebody else that might have, more experience.
So what happened next? You first discovered it in your own class. You looked into other classes as well. And then what happened?
So I initially let the people at my college know who I would normally report academic dishonesty to. And I gave them the screenshots, the names of the students, and told them that there was something different going on. They responded that they were investigating a ring that was basically having students contact people like over in Nigeria and a couple other locations to do their work for them. And so he wanted me to send, more information to the IP. He was going to look at IP addresses to see if they were linked. And I kind of mentioned this does not appear the same. It looks a little bit different than maybe what he was describing, and really never heard anything after that.
And then what did you do?
So I just kept, this wasn't my only thing that I was, doing. It takes a lot of personal time. So I basically just started diving into different rosters, different course rosters in my own personal department. And I just kept finding very, very similar things. I identified a handful that were definitely identity theft, in addition to the financial aid fraud. And it just continued to snowball, and I kept contacting our administration through various routes, and pretty much it didn't really seem like they were that interested in it.
Be sure to watch the entire episode, now available exclusively at epochtv.com, a new completely censorship-free premium subscription platform. Brought to you by the Epoch Times. See you there.